Hello everyone, my name is Manolis, Sfinarolakis, the founder and producer of RealityCrowdTV, and welcome to RealityCrowdTV episode 26. Crowdfunding has a magazine, and that magazine is crowdfoundme.com. We have a wonderful show today, and we're very excited for our guests. But before we begin the actual broadcast, I would just like to go through some housekeeping notes. If you follow the circle of RealityCrowdTV, you'll be able to ask a question using the Q&A application that is built into our Google Hangout on Air. Additionally, all the information of our guests is in the Google event copy. So if you wanted to go to their website and do some research on our wonderful guests from crowdfoundme.com, all that information is there. Additionally, we're always looking for future guests, and we're always looking for people to help out in the production of our show. So any suggestions, just please go to realitycrowdtv.com and send us a contact form. With that said, again, we have a great show. But before I introduce our featured guests, I'd like to say I'd like to introduce you all to Jessica Sun, the co-founder and CEO of RealityCrowdTV.
Hello, everyone. Thank you again for joining us. I hope you enjoy the show. It should be great.
Excellent. And so yeah, then we'll introduce our guests. So our first guest is Kamni Gupta, the co-founder of crowdfoundme.com. And Kamni, please introduce yourself for a moment.
Hi, my name is Kamni Gupta. I am, as you said, a co-founder at Crowdfunding Magazine. I have worked with startups since I graduated college. Won't tell you what year, but it's been about 6 years. And yeah, I have an awesome crowdfounder, and check out our magazine.
Awesome. And thank you for joining us, Kamni. And so then we also have the co-founder, Frank Spaulding of Crowdfunding Magazine. And Frank, you've been a guest on our show a number of times on our crowdfunding office hours. But thank you for joining us as a featured guest. And introduce yourself, please.
Howdy, Manolis and everybody else. Thank you for having us. It's definitely appreciated. My name is Frank Spaulding, the CEO and co-founder of Crowdfunding Magazine. Yeah, I think Kamni said it all. It's we're here to help people and have some fun with crowdfunding, and it's your crowdfunding office hours are a great thing also. So it's good to be able to get out there and help people.
Excellent. Yeah, Frank, and you guys are becoming. I mean, you guys are experts in the industry with all the campaigns that you see coming through your magazine, and all the people who are looking to get featured in your articles. So. You guys see it from a different angle, so the resources you provide on your site are top-notch. And so with that said, we actually have some specific questions for you all, and I'll let Jessica give you guys the first question.
Yeah, so guys, how did you guys become co-founders? Did you guys just meet on the street? Did you guys know each other before? Tell us the story.
I guess I'll run with this one. I was actually working at Co-Founders Lab. I don't know if you guys are familiar, but essentially we were there in the business of putting co-founders together. And while I was there, it was kind of dawning on me that, I have been working with startups for so long since I got out of college, and I'm supposed to be becoming a lawyer, but I keep working for startups, and I should probably start one of my own. Amidst all that, I found out that I'll be moving to Florida with my husband. And I happened to have a profile on Co-Founders Lab for work, and I ended up meeting Frank. And he was starting CrowdFoundMe, and that's how we met each other.
Oh, wow, so you guys just found each other online and then just kicked it off? You had a couple conversations and you had the same vision, and you were like, oh, let's do this.
Yep, crowdfounder dating. We're the picture perfect for it.
Very nice. I mean, it really does take a lot of conversations, because selecting a co-founder is obviously a very important decision. And I guess let me ask Frank that question, because Frank, what did you see in Kamni that you said, you know what, she would be a great co-founder?
Good question, Manolis. Basically, she found me, like she said, on Co-Founders Lab, and all of a sudden the email appears out of nowheres, which I found interesting because I hadn't heard any communication from anybody else on that site that I had attempted to communicate with. So she mentioned that she was going to be down here while they were looking at a house shortly, and we sat down outside of a Starbucks and talked for like 3 hours, and by the end I'd pretty much made the decision.
Wow.
And it's, if you were to look at it from a dating point of view, I was willing to continue forward and go on to the dinner part, as opposed to start off with drinks and then if you like the person, hey, let's go to dinner. So just said, we're family, and I'd pretty much made up my mind at that point. I've always been a gut decision kind of guy.
That is awesome. That is really great. And so then to keep it on you too, Frank. So obviously your magazine is covering the crowdfunding industry, and our show's about crowdfunding. What about the crowdfunding industry got you excited? Why did you say that this is the time to create a startup in this industry that helps people really get educated on it? So why crowdfunding?
Actually, I was just looking to put together a website and forum and some educational services on finding co-founders, and that's kind of why I was checking out Co-Founders Lab, was to steal ideas. In the process of meeting Cammy and talking and discussing, we started looking into funding that campaign, that process, and it just came down to there was no one resource that provided all the information for how to crowdfund pretty much anything. There was a bit here, and hey, but wait, there's more for a fee. And here there's a little bit more, but wait, there's more for a fee. So everywhere we looked, that was the issue. So it came down to let's put together a resource where we can give all that information for free. And secondly, the magazine just seemed to be a logical conclusion for the method to carry that out.
Excellent.
If that makes any sense.
No, it does. It makes a lot of sense. It is a great resource. And Cammy, what got you excited about crowdfunding?
Essentially, that was it. I mean, startups usually come out of a need that you find is not met, and that's what happened with us. Between my moving, us discussing, doing a startup together, we started looking at resources to fund the original idea we had, and this is where we ended up. There was no resource that we were looking for that could give us all the resources for free and teach us how to do things. I mean, with the crowdfunding industry, one of the main concerns right now is all the investors that are going to come in, that they don't essentially know what they're doing. They're not educated on it. And I mean, we've got the potato salad going on right now as a perfect example. It's just, it's funds that are going to get otherwise wasted when if they were informed and empowered, they could use it wisely and make someone's dream come true. And essentially that's what we're here to do. We're here to empower you and educate you and help you in your journey and help you help others as well.
Wonderful.
Just to kind of tail onto that real quick, as annoying as this potato salad thing is, this is actually helping our industry a lot as far as crowdfunding. There are a lot of people probably supporting this who are being introduced to crowdfunding who have never heard of it before as a result of all the media attention that it's gathering, that are probably investing for the first time and starting to look at these sites and look at Kickstarter like, oh my God. So it's, it's kind of a double-edged sword. It's dumb, kind of just an opinion thing there, but and his marketing luck is just crazy, but it's also opening a lot of people's eyes who previously had not heard of crowdfunding yet. What is it, 1 in 10 people have heard of it? I think you've got numbers, research that you've done.
Yes, actually, when we started this journey ourselves about 8 months ago, we went to a Starbucks in Main Street, in Main Street, Connecticut, in New Britain. And we had my GoPro camera, and we went up to just 8 random people, and we asked them a simple question. We said, have you ever heard of crowdfunding? Have you ever heard of Kickstarter? And 7 out of 8 people who actually were in this coffee shop, Starbucks, 7 out of 8 people had never heard of either term. And so whenever I share that information with people who know what crowdfunding is, they're shocked because everyone's drinking the Kool-Aid. Everyone who knows about crowdfunding doesn't realize that the majority of America doesn't, and they're only talking to the people who know. What you're doing, Frank, and what you're doing, Cammy, is you're trying to get to the people who don't know yet so that they can realize that this is an amazing opportunity. And just to be fair, in case we have audience members who don't know what crowdfunding is, I always like to explain it this way. Take the concept of passing around the basket at church, where a crowd of people contribute to an individual with a need. Put that concept online, apply it to things other than charities like small businesses, technology, film, art, and music, and you have crowdfunding. So in a very basic way, that's essentially what's happening is you're turning social capital into actual capital via the internet. And so, you know, yeah. So, so Jess, I think you have the next question.
Yep. So you guys covered obviously a lot of different stories about crowdfunding. How do you choose which ones to cover? Because obviously you can't cover them all.
Currently, we're getting hit with quite a few interview requests. A lot of it's currently automated, and we let them, you know, we give them specific information that we're looking for, and the people submit the information. For the most part, the majority of them are making it up. As it continues to get stronger and stronger, the number that we're being approached with, we'll either have to fully automate that system, or start, you know, if you're looking for the campaigns, you know, which just kind of sucks to say that, you know, it's almost a censorship without having to censor it, but the ones that we think have a chance. I don't really like the idea of that, so I would almost probably lean towards automating that process, and we will pick and choose through for the larger campaigns that we think would fit well in the magazine, provided it fits that particular month's theme as we go forward. Therefore, it's not saying, you know, we don't think you're going to make it. It's, you know, do you fit the magazine's theme this month, as opposed to, you know, maybe next month or the month after.
I see. So sometimes can you hold off on a story and then save it for next thing for a prior, like a future?
Yeah, Cammy is actually handling a large percentage of that, so she would be a great person to answer that question.
Yeah, and essentially that's what we're doing. We're not waiting to get the story. If you have a story or a tip or an original article that you wrote that you want to submit to us, you can. We'll hold off on putting it in the magazine if we deem it good enough, I guess, to go in the magazine. As long as it fits the theme of it, we'll put it in there and we'll let you know. But as far as our site and our blog goes, I mean, the thing we keep repeating is we want to get the resources out to the people that need it or want it. So, I mean, that's why we have the contributor program. We're hiring for interns and, you know, everything. Come one, come all. Bring all your resources. We'll read through it so we can provide it to the people that are actually looking for it.
Absolutely. How about a favorite article that you guys wrote or covered?
I mean, hands down my favorite, and I know it was recent, it has just been Patch of Land. We enjoyed doing the interview with them. It was so informative. I actually walked away learning so much, and I mean, Frank is the one that conducted the interview. I got to just put it together, so I didn't get to talk to them, but I'll let him comment on that.
Actually, an email I got earlier from Adapia Derico, which is the Chief Marketing Officer of Patchland, along with the fact that we'd apparently somehow erred on a URL, so I fixed that pretty quickly. But everyone loves the article, and they're getting a lot of attention and comments as a result of that article, so they're quite happy with it as well.
That's awesome. Yeah, the people at Patchland are really great, very gracious people. So good choice, Cammy.
Yeah, you did a pretty good interview yourself with them not too long ago, so.
Yeah, they're really great people, and actually, Cammy, you mentioned about you know, contributors and interns. That leads me to my next question. Are you currently hiring, and how can people get involved in any capacity with the efforts that you're doing in crowdfunding?
Okay, so I'll do a quick rundown and I'll let Frank finish that off because we're hiring for sales as well, and that's something he's heading up. But we have our contributor program where we figured, I mean, in school I wrote amazing articles, and I would think, oh, if I got it published one day, that would be great. But that got me thinking that there's so many business students out there. There's the ones that are doing an MBA, the entrepreneurship programs, the journalism, and the marketing students. All of them can be a great asset to the crowdfunding industry. They can research it, write about it, and submit their articles. We can give them a byline. So this is our contributor program. We'll reward them with a byline. We'll give them a reference. And I even went as far as to say that we can work with their school to see if we can give them college credit for those submissions, if that's something that they're interested in. I mean, that gets them published. That gets us, you know, future generations looking at crowdfunding and actually getting an interest in it. So that's one thing we're doing. And the other one is we're actually hiring for editorial interns. and that's basically going to be writing articles and researching and going to events with us and covering them and doing interviews, and of course working closely with me. So can't beat that, I would say.
Absolutely, Jess. I'm renouncing my title as founder. I will talk to you later. No, I'm just
Look what you've done, Candy.
Frank, did you want to follow up with that? Just any additional on the sales side?
Basically, yeah, everything, as Kemi said, we're getting ready to release our first issues of the magazine next month at KickerCon in Houston, Texas, which will be a great conference. And sales is always the lifeblood of a company. We're looking for either just a sales superstar or 2 or 3 sales superstars. And the more sales superstars we have, the larger the magazine and the more of the content we can throw in. But honestly, if they're experienced, they know how to sell an ad. They've got experience with the industry. It's not just you can't just have sold just anything and step into ad sales. It's kind of a different beast, as I'm learning very quickly and starting to get out there and reach out. And as I talk to people, they say it's very different than, say, selling cars or selling Amway, even, which I did that back in the day too. So it's we're taking in some interviews. We've gotten a couple of resumes, and we'll see where that goes. But we're also willing to put together affiliate programs for anybody that's willing to send potential advertisers our way.
Very cool. Jess, you have the next question, I believe.
Yeah, sure. So where do you guys see crowdfunding going in the next, say, 5 to 10 years? I guess we'll start with Kemi.
Ladies first.
Ladies first.
To be honest, I've been giving that a lot of thought. I just did a LinkedIn article on what is crowdfunding, given that a lot of people don't understand it. And then I went into the pros and cons, and then I broke down an infographic that's out there by Business Profiles about the future of crowdfunding and how equity crowdfunding is going to be the next big thing, the niche platforms. And honestly, I can say that it's going to exist and it's going to evolve, but I can't speak to in what fashion, because there's platforms that are crowdfunding on their own platforms. The rules are still changing. So I know it'll exist, I just don't know in what form. And I'll let Frank continue that.
Thanks, Kemi. It's kind of a loaded question. A lot of the answer to that question is dependent upon what the SEC does here in the immediate future. You've got a lot of states that some states have their interstate laws that allow crowdfunding. Some are allowing equity crowdfunding. Some are just rewards crowdfunding. Some are operating on Regulation A. Some are operating on old 506B, 506 rules. I've got a little 6-year-old sneaking up on me right now. So it's there's Regulation A out there. There's Regulation E Plus that's on the horizon. If that gets passed in its current form, crowdfunding, especially equity crowdfunding, is going to be I think the next wild west. Truly, companies will have just the option. It's $50 million that they can go for. That is life-changing money for a small business that's trying to start up, versus some of a lot of the limitations that are there right now. So I think a lot of that, just like the Jobs Act and your campaign that a lot of people are supporting, or the campaign that we're supporting, also release the rules. The current suggested rules are going to make even just Title III so restrictive that it may not be the game changer that they were hoping it would be. So it's all dependent upon what the SEC does. If they get out of the way, they release the rules, they relax things, we get Regulation A Plus the way it is currently, then the world is going to change, becoming a much better place, and everybody is going to have the ability to get out there and invest. If they don't change, or if they do change the rules, they make it strictly accredited investors, it's more of what we already have now, which that's why we're trying to change things.
Absolutely, and just to make sure I can level set with the audience too, because a lot of people may know the current model of crowdfunding, which is a donation in exchange for a reward. That's the model that's being employed on Indiegogo and Kickstarter. So you might know crowdfunding from that model. But back in 2012, the U.S. government took note of how quickly things were shaping up in this crowdfunding world. To give the audience an indication, back in 2009, when crowdfunding really started via the internet, it was around $1 billion a year was raised globally. Flash forward to 2013, which was this past year that just passed, it raised to $5.1 billion a year globally. The World Bank released a report in November of 2013 that said in 20 years it's going to be a $90 billion a year industry globally. So the U.S. government back in 2012, they took note of this growth, and they passed the 2012 Jobs Act, which is the Jumpstart Our Small Businesses Act. And in that act, they said if it works for donation in exchange for reward, can it work for contribution in exchange for a direct purchase of a private company's shares of stock, or a direct loan to a private company whereby the so-called reward would be an interest rate on that loan? And so what Frank said was so important, because right now the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission, which is regulating this new law, has been stalling the rules for a very long time, and Frank is part of the movement of the Release the Rules movement. So anyone watching, go on Twitter and use the hashtag Release the Rules and say SEC, hashtag Release the Rules. We've been waiting too long, because bottom line is these provisions in this law are going to help small businesses so immensely. The only one that's currently out there that in its full form is what Frank mentioned, Title II equity crowdfunding, which is general solicitation of accredited investors. So people now can actually advertise to individuals who are accredited investors, meaning individuals who make $200,000 a year or are worth $1 million in net worth. Previously, that was not available in our U.S. government to allow people to advertise a private company for investment to an accredited investor unless you had a personal relationship with them. So now that opened up to general solicitation of accredited investors. And additionally, the other one that Frank mentioned was the unaccredited investor crowdfunding, which is even more revolutionary. The government said, you know, since the Great Depression, 1933, when we made these rules, only individuals who are wealthy could invest in private companies, because they said people lost their shirts in the Great Depression. So we want to make sure that the people who can't afford to lose an income are not allowed to invest in these assets. But the internet came along. We're smarter people today. We can research anything that we want on the internet and actually self-correct these opportunities. And so the government said, as part of these rules, that soon anyone, regardless of income, will be able to invest in a private company through crowdfunding. So guys, I'm sorry that I went on this little soliloquy, whatever you want to call it, but I think it's important for the audience to know that there's amazing changes happening for small businesses all over the United States right now. And there's a movement called the crowdfunding movement, as well as the startup movement, that's really picking up steam simply because these amazing tools are coming. So with that said, I want to go to the questions. We do have some questions, and this one's actually a nice little comment. Camney, you might know Stephen Caggiano. He says hello.
Hi.
So, you know, Steve wanted to say hello. We also have another question from Lola Brown. This is directed toward CrowdFoundMe. What type of products do you sell, or do you sell products at all?
To answer Lola's question, we will be delivered. The magazine itself will be free to all people who want it in its digital form. The print issues will be currently free for the first year. After that, for print distribution, we will probably charge a nominal fee to at the very least cover the cost of printing and shipping. But for the most part, the goal is to provide as much of the information as we're able to come up with free of charge. Anything we do, it will always be put out there free of charge. As we learn more about how to do things in crowdfunding, we will present that to people free of charge. Will we also link to services and other suggested vendors? who do it professionally for a fee? Yes. That's part of how we make money. Will we have advertisers? Yes. Will there be commercials thrown in there as a result of, as a method to pay for all of that free content? Yes. But what will you pay? If you want to and you're able to learn from all of the content given to you for free, it will be free. And if you'll also have that option, though, if you do want to pay for it, there are a great number of vendors out there who do a great deal of crowdfunding for people professionally, who've got a lot of successful campaigns under their belts, and all it takes is a little bit of research to find them. And we'll also provide a lot of information on how to do that, once again, for free. Excellent.
Thank you for the question, Lola. And then we also have, and this one, Kamini, this one's going to go to you. This one is from a gentleman named Karan Gupta, and his question says,
I think there's something fishy about that guy.
Go ahead.
How do you see the IPO market being impacted by equity crowdfunding?
Frank.
No, you first, Kim.
Ladies first.
You know what? We'll come back, Frank. You first.
Sure thing. Well, once again, that's dependent upon the SEC. If they allow Title III, that will allow up to $100,000 to be solicited publicly to junky investor, accredited and non-accredited. But the issue there with Title III is it could still cost upwards of $30,000 to run a campaign. The advantage to Regulation A+, if it is passed in its current form, for about the same cost as a Title III campaign, you'll be able to solicit publicly up to $50 million. Now, that is an equity IPO to be made notice of. A prime example would be the Oculus Rift. With the campaign they ran, collecting, I believe it was around $2.5 million on Kickstarter, if everybody had actually gotten equity and small pieces of equity, as opposed to just whatever rewards they got, when Facebook came along and bought them for several $1 billion, that would have been a great payday for everybody. Another example, especially in the IPO market, and part of, I think the government's worried that people are going to invest money that they don't have in these. The only thing right now in the current laws forms with IPOs are the IPOs. Anybody can go to any one of the online stock trading sites right now and buy any shares of any stock there is out there, as long as they've got the money to buy it. There is no limitation. The only thing their hands are being smacked on right now is the IPO. You have to be an accredited investor and know somebody generally to get in on an IPO. This could potentially open up the door to anybody, even with still healthy limitations, which I think even junky investor needs to have a healthy limitation so that they don't put themselves in the poorhouse, gambling as it is, in hopes that that IPO takes off like crazy. But it's still, it has an amazing potential to help companies that previously would not be able to put together, a proper IPO through the banks, where it could potentially, they could be going after hundreds of millions of dollars, such as, the Facebook IPO, the Twitter IPO, and such, stuff like that. They might not need that much money, or they're just not in a position to get to that point. Maybe down the road they might go that route, but that's a one day at a time thing, and it's all steps. It's baby steps.
Absolutely, I agree wholeheartedly with that assessment. Kamini, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, and from my understanding, the SEC is meeting today to change the definitions of an accredited investor, so that'll be an interesting topic for us to cover in the coming weeks to see how that's going to impact everybody as well.
Yes, good call. I haven't read too much into that, so I can't comment specifically, but I believe part of the definition of the accredited investor that they're contemplating on changing is potentially increasing what it means to be an accredited investor, meaning you have to make more than $200,000 now, or be worth more than $1 million a year. And then I think they're also thinking about you have to have a professional certification, like you might have to be like a Series 7 or a CPA. So they're making it really hard to be accredited, which is not a good thing in my opinion. So
yeah, it's not. And
yeah.
I mean, even in the simplest form, for those of you who still are a little bit confused about what equity crowdfunding is, you can actually think of it as an IPO. It's really the first time you're going to be seeing the project online, and you have the option to buy it or not, or donate to it or not, or invest in it or not, once equity crowdfunding is legal for everyone. So think of it as an IPO.
Yeah, good call. You are going public in this equity crowdfunding legislation, in a sense. You know, they're making the private companies public. But one thing to also just add to that, and Karan, thank you for the question. That was a great question. I actually saw an article that was released by the New York Stock Exchange, and they said that out of the companies that went public this year on the New York Stock Exchange, over 50% of them had used some provision in the 2012 Jobs Act. So in other words, it's going to impact it greatly, because it's just the IPO market, the New York Stock Exchange, the Dow Jones Industrial, the NASDAQ, that's like the final stop on the journey of the capital market structure. What the Jobs Act is trying to do is it's trying to fill in the gaps that are currently missing in the small business area, so that the small guys can actually get there one day too, if they do the actual steps and the work needed. Of course, it's a very risky business. Most startups fail. We all hear the statistic of 95% of startups fail. But the point is, there is a new mechanism now to create jobs in America. There will be companies that succeed, and there will be jobs that are being created as a result of this. And in fact, what the story that maybe not many people are telling is, what about the ecosystem within the crowdfunding movement that's been anticipating equity crowdfunding all these times? Look at all of us. We're going to be creating jobs for other people just in anticipation of what's happening in this industry. So the jobs that have been created by the ecosystem of crowdfunding itself has created thousands of jobs already. So it's kind of an interesting, actually, Frank, maybe you guys can do a story on that. I'd love to read that.
Well, and it's also impacting, you know, and you hit on one of the key things, the number of startups that fail. A large percentage of the startups that are failing, it's generally for lack of funds. It's not to say that there aren't a great number of startups that do get funds, and that's a whole other, you know, figure, how many startups get funds and still go broke for lack of converting it from startup mode to an actual operating business mode. But that's, you know, that's one of the things that essentially the equity IPO market that would be opened up and could be opened up by this will bring out, will help a lot more startups go from that startup stage, which a lot of people might not realize there is a difference between a startup stage and an actual business that is up and running. In startup mode, people are wearing a lot of hats, they're bouncing around, the business model is evolving week to week to week or month to month, sometimes day to day, depending on what's working, what's actually gaining traction. That's going to determine, you know, what it eventually becomes as a startup. Once it's solidified and you start to, you know, deliver a cash model, you start to build up a customer base off of something that's working. The number of hats people are wearing start to cut down. You start bringing in more people who are specializing in particular jobs within the company, which is a positive thing for the local economy. But also, you know, sometimes that brings in a need for a cash infusion. But as that evolves, you know, at that point in time, to a smaller business that is going to last long term, that is a major need. That's where, you know, things like, you know, the Jobs Act is, you know, being very, very helpful, or has the potential to be very, very helpful.
Absolutely, Frank. And actually, we have another question too. So this is a great question too from Karan Gupta. It says here, any insight into the costs associated with equity crowdfunding? Karan has been through an IPO, and he could tell us that the costs are staggering to go public, and maintain the public reporting structure is also costly. So that is actually a very good point. Kamni, would you like to weigh in? If not, I can kind of weigh in on that too. But what I mean, well, first off, is Karan is your husband? Is that correct?
Yes, you can call him out on that.
Excellent.
He's sitting out there watching.
That is awesome. You know what? Tell you know, Karan, you should come in the same room with Kamni. I think you should ask the question directly.
You might as well.
But you know, but but to say, you know, but let me actually answer a piece of that question though, because Jessica and I have done some research on this. So right now, equity crowdfunding, depending on which one you go through, is going to be expensive, but it depends on which one you go through. So if you're going through Title II equity crowdfunding, which is, if the audience is watching and you're wondering what Title II equity crowdfunding is, I'd imagine that you should just take a pen and paper and write this down. Title II equity crowdfunding equals Rule 506C in Regulation D of the Securities Act. What that does is you have to be an accredited investor to invest in a private company, but in order to bring a private business to get funded by these wealthy investors, you don't have to be wealthy. A startup team who is not an accredited investor, but they have a great business, they have a great business plan, they have all these resources at their disposal. You could bring your company to get funded on these crowdfunding websites right now by wealthy investors, and they're going to find you throughout the internet. So one such site is AngelCo. Angel.co is really a good one that is really out there doing a lot of things. But the costs on that is dependent on how the equity platform does it, because some of these platforms build a fund structure into their mechanism where, let's say a startup wants to raise $5 million, the crowdfunding website's in the middle, they create this fund as part of their services where they handle all the reporting, and then all the investors who invest in the startup, they go through the middle, which is the crowdfunding platform, and the fund is what aggregates all the investors in the middle, and any income that's earned from the startup is paid to the fund distributes out the returns, and the fund also does all the reporting. So depending on what the revenue model is for the crowdfunding website that's in the middle, they might even just have the typical private equity model where they get a 2% management fee and 20% carry. By the way, I'm just regurgitating that. I don't even really know what that means. But I know that's what they do, but I really am not sure what it means.
Feel my pain. Feel my pain right now.
Yeah, like in other words, like I know that's how they do it. I've never actually done it myself or know how the workings happen, but that's the jargon of the industry, so to speak.
If I recall correctly, I believe we have 2 crowdfunding campaigns coming, yours and ours, correct?
Yes.
Yes, we do indeed. However, we won't be doing equity. We'll be doing, at least I won't. I don't know if you guys, are you guys considering equity or rewards?
Yes.
Both. Excellent. Well, that's a good answer.
We like to keep our options open.
Absolutely. I mean, heck, you know, you guys, we're startups, and we believe in the industry so much that we're putting our own companies through the test of the crowdfunding model. So it makes a lot of sense. You know, it makes a lot of sense. And so now the Title III, which is the unaccredited investor crowdfunding, Karan, that will be a little bit more costly because the actual regulations to comply on that end, because there's going to be so much more volume, I don't think that there'll be crowdfunding websites that necessarily create that fund model for the smaller deals, because Title III is only up to $1 million raised, whereas the accredited investor ones has no limit. You could raise, you know, $1 billion technically. So the costs associated for a funding portal to do that reporting mechanism on a smaller deal probably doesn't make a lot of financial sense for many of them to do it. So the cost will then shift to the startup to have to pay for the attorney, the accountants, the compliance fees, and any consultants that they might need to pay to help them build the momentum 3 to 6 months before they launch their campaign to raise the money from the crowd. So in that sense, if you're a small business trying to raise money from the unaccredited investors, meaning anyone regardless of income will be able to invest in a private company, from that sense, if you're only raising $30,000 and it might cost you $20,000 to do this, you're not going to use this mechanism to raise 30,000.
No.
But if you're trying to raise over 500 or even over 200, 30,000 might be something you're willing to spend, especially if you're confident that you'll raise the 200.
Correct.
So excellent
that
question.
also requires Regulation A+ to have passed at that time too. Otherwise, Title III is a limitation to $100,000.
Absolutely, and so Regulation A+ is the other provision. So you had, so again, audience, if you're writing this, you wrote down Title II equity crowdfunding, which is general solicitation of accredited investors. You wrote down Title III equity crowdfunding, which is general solicitation of anyone regardless of income, unaccredited. So anyone regardless of income will be able to invest with Title III. Title IV is what Frank referred to as Regulation A+. So write down Title IV equals Regulation A+. And in that model, it is mixing both accredited and unaccredited investors to invest together in the same offering, but instead of the limit of $5 million, it is raising the limit to $50 million for unaccredited investors. So instead of the $1 million limit of Title III, Title IV could potentially allow $50 million to be raised from anyone regardless of income, which is truly an exciting regulation. So did I say everything accurately there, Frank?
I believe so.
Excellent.
Well,
I apologize. I seem to be having serious microphone issues here also, so if people can't hear me, I'm sorry.
Oh, it's quite all right. No worries. We we can hear you for sure. We do hear some feedback, but we can hear you. No worries.
I just want to say one thing, though, especially until the laws are actually officially passed, we really can't say how much anything really is going to cost. These are all estimates, so until anything is passed, just keep in mind that things can really just change. So. Yes. So that Jessica just wrote the forward-looking statements of our management disclosure and analysis. This joke, but. So yeah, so exactly, and the wonderful thing about what's happening too is there's a concerted effort by some people in the industry to try to scare people away from certain crowdfunding laws. So some people are overblowing the costs and overblowing a lot of what's happening simply because they have a vested interest in having people just use one type of crowdfunding over another. And so what I see is, although the costs will be high for most people, over time, just like the plasma TVs came out and they cost $5,000 and now they're down to like $1,000 or whatever they are, technology will increase to a level where the cost of compliance will be driven down by companies that say, this is a major problem, and what's the purpose of a business? To solve a problem, and they'll solve it by making it cheaper to comply. So I personally am optimistic that eventually, it may take a year or two, who knows how long it'll take, eventually this will be affordable for most people. So yeah, I agree with that. So Frank, I also think this might be a good time for us to kind of discuss a little bit of a strategic partnership that we're entering into. So RealityCrowdTV and Crowdfunding Magazine are looking to enter into a strategic partnership, and I'll let Frank introduce that to the audience.
Yes, excellent. We're here to take over the world. Here, let me try this microphone and see if it works better. I'm sorry, I can't hear myself.
This one. Okay, this setting. Okay, so basically, yeah. Oops, that's scary.
And Frank, make sure you keep it very sturdy too, because whenever it moves, we can hear a lot of background noise.
Yeah, I have no idea which one's picking it up. That's the problem. Better. I have 3 of them.
Yeah,
okay, well, good.
That's better right now.
What are you going to do when you do that?
Okay, perfect. I'll just sit here and keep doing this. So yeah, as Manolis said, we're starting a crowdfunding pitch show. It will be a joint venture between RealityCrowdTV and Crowdfunding Magazine. It's kind of an offshoot of an idea that we had while we were at all met up at One Spark. We just decided to start interviewing people and having them give their pitch. And we wanted to do a contest. It didn't completely work out 100% while we were there at One Spark. But carrying it forward as a result of Shark Tank and some various pitch contests, that we've seen both online TV shows and podcasts. The goal will be probably a short 15-minute or so video TV show, hang out like we're doing now. 3 contestants each week, provided we can get enough contestants. I don't think that'll be a problem. There'll be a weekly prize. Everybody will have a short pitch period, followed by a Q&A after each pitch. And then some form of voting mechanism will be employed. We're making that decision here very quickly. And the results will be announced the following day. The weekly winner will get some form of small prize. And then the first 3 weeks of each month, the winners each week will go up against each other at the end of the month. And we already have our first major sponsor. That will be headfunder.com. We'll be providing a free crowdfunding campaign to the winner each month for the first 3 months, short of all fees, save for the credit card processing fees. They have no control over what their credit card service is handling. But beyond that, a free crowdfunding campaign. Headfunder handles both what you see is what you get campaigns, as well as all or nothing campaigns. So that will be an option that the winner will get to pick and choose. But our goal is to get out there, and we're in the process of this contest. We're also helping people to work on their pitches, better present their pitch, so that when they get out there and try and pitch to real VCs, angels, or the other crowdfunding campaign, that their pitch is prepared and capable of drawing the audience in and getting funded. Did I hit it all?
Yeah, I think you got it right. I mean, yeah, we're excited too. I mean, you know, a lot of people, I think, when they start out on their startup journey, they have never clearly had to articulate what their vision is for their company. And so when you're out there trying to articulate what your vision and your mission is of your company, practice makes perfect. And so what we're hoping is the companies that come on this crowdfunding pitch competition that we'll be doing on a joint venture, they will be getting some valuable insight and experience because they will be being, you know, there will be a winner selected each week, so they're going to get the valuable feedback on what they did well, what didn't they do well. They're going to get exposure for their brand or their company. And really, we're not trying to, you know, to really, you know, hurt entrepreneurs with the feedback that we give them. We're trying to prepare them with a mindset that says, this is just one stop on the journey of success. This is just one more stop and one more roadblock that I'm going to break through, because the next time I give a pitch, and maybe it'll be in person, maybe it'll be in another virtual event, but no matter where I give my pitch for my company, the fact that I had this opportunity to practice in front of an audience who then helped in the process of determining who wins, that right there will be valuable for their journey going forward. And so, you know, we think this will be a value to the entrepreneurs. We think this will be a value for the audience, because I don't know about, you know, I don't know about you guys on the panel, but I know that the millennial generation is entrepreneurs in hiding, and they're all kind of, they're all been raised by their parents to say, you know, son, daughter, you can grow up and be whatever you want to be. And, you know, they grew up during a time when the, you know, the economic situation was much better. Then they go into corporate America and they get these jobs, and the first thing they do is, bam, there goes the corporate box telling me I can't think outside of it. And, you know, that's what's happening in America. So for the audience out there, especially I think the millennial demographic, but not even that, because I see everyone. Doesn't matter what age you are, everyone has a dream, and crowdfunding is going to allow these people another outlet that if they've been declined by a bank, if they can't find a wealthy person who's a venture capitalist, a VC, then they've given up on their dream. But now that crowdfunding is into the picture, it's revitalizing a new sense of entrepreneurship all across America. And so that's why this crowdfunding pitch competition is going to help be a very small role, which I hope eventually turns much greater in giving people this opportunity. Jess, what are your thoughts?
No, my thoughts are, even if people, I see in the future, even if people don't get declined by the banks and banks want them, a lot more people will actually turn to crowdfunding just because they can validate it with a crowd of people. So it's not just one person or two people or a bunch of people at a bank saying yes or no to your idea. You're actually going online, posting it to pretty much everyone in the world and saying, hey, this is my idea. Is this good? What can be worked on? What cannot be worked on? Let's get feedback and make this better from the start instead of putting it up to a couple people and maybe even failing on a loan and being in debt for the rest of your life because a couple people made the wrong or right decision.
Yeah, and Kamini, what do you think of that?
I completely agree with that. I mean, as startups, when we go through the round, before we start making our own pitch, we go through this round of like asking our peers, okay, does this work? What do I need to improve? Then we go to our potential customers and we get feedback and rejection from them. And we renew our pitch and we go at it again, this time knowing that we're armed with the right tools to acquire customers. So it's essentially the same thing with anybody's idea. You won't know until you go try, so at least you can come to a venue. Trust these people don't have a vested interest of any kind. They'll be honest with you, brutal with you, and that's something you can take away and, use.
Yeah, 100%. And here's the thing that you also mentioned, the validation. And this is what's kind of scary for me, just looking at the industry from where I see it at the moment. There's some ideas, and a lot of people are using crowdfunding to validate ideas, and it is a good platform for that. Don't get me wrong, it is. But there should be a sense of pre-validation before you even try to crowdfund. There should be a customer validation process before you ever crowdfund. So if you're someone who just has a great idea, and you went out and you asked questions and said, would you buy this if it was in a store? Would you buy this if this was a service? And everyone's telling you, no, I wouldn't, and you're not changing your pitch to try to figure out what would change in order for them to buy it, and you're just going ahead and trying to crowdfund anyways, and you're ignoring that feedback, then you're done. I mean, the point is, people who are in this industry who are going to end up helping people crowdfund, you want to make sure that the people that you go to for help are asking you questions like, is there a market for this? Have you validated that there's a market for this in the first place? Because if they're not asking you questions, then they're just trying to take your money, and they don't really care if there's a market or not. They just want to get paid. So the point is, you need to be very careful with validation as well, because it's not just going to crowdfund for validation. There needs to be a lot of validation done before you ever decide to put a marketing budget towards your crowdfunding campaign. And actually, here's a great question too, Marlon. Marlon Adams. Marlon Adams is a great friend of ours. He had co-hosted a show with RealityCrowdTV in the past, and he is the founder of culturalgrassroots.com, a crowdfunding platform. And in fact, Marlon, I'd love to introduce you to Kamini and Frank when the time permits as well. They may want to write an article about you. So he asks us, will we be spending to promote the new co-venture? And do you mind if I answer that, guys?
Sure.
Oh yeah. So initially we will not be spending. We will be using the only resource that we're going to use is our time. So we won't be necessarily spending any cash, but we'll be putting in a lot of time and effort using the tools that we use to build up our own following here and CrowdFundMe, their following through their magazine. We're going to be using those connections, and we're going to really be doing that. In the future, however, what I'm noticing is the content of the pitch competition is going to be so great that eventually all we're going to need is just a way to get a broader audience. So if the content is good and you just increase the audience, that means better value for everyone. So in the future, if we actually earn some sort of return on our time investment, we will be using the majority of those funds, I'd imagine, we'd have to talk about it, to help promote the event so that it not only does it go to a large audience for the venture, but it's good for the entrepreneurs because they're getting more exposure, and then it would be good for the audience, who I personally believe will one day all be entrepreneurs. So everyone watching, you guys are just entrepreneurs in waiting, okay? Don't think you're not. They're entrepreneurs in waiting.
I think another good term there would be community equity is what we're using right now. We're going to pull together the communities that we've collectively built and count on them to help reaching out to finding people who want to be a part of this pitch show. And as they take part in that and continue to share it amongst their community, which kind of fits in a little bit with the previous comments about, kind of proof of concept. We're going to prove our concept on this pitch show by putting it forward and seeing, the first couple of months. Does it work? Is it working? How is it working? But in that process, we're trying to build up that community. And that's the difference, I think, in a lot of cases between the crowdfunding campaigns that succeed and the crowdfunding campaigns that fail. Regardless of the amount of research and time that you put in, if you don't build up a community around yourself of people that also believe in your product, then odds are you're not going to do so well. It requires a lot of people reaching out or a lot of money reaching out. If you've got the money to reach out and spend a fortune on a campaign, do you really honestly need to do the campaign? A lot of people who are doing crowdfunding aren't in that position. So they spend time building a community amongst themselves. But it's not just about Twitter followers or Instagram followers or followers on any social media platform. It's about getting out there, and I know everybody's said it before, communicating with them on a regular basis, having conversations, becoming a family to a degree, finding out what makes them tick, and just talking about it. It's not always about my project or your project. It's about, hey, how's the kids? If I know that you've got kids, or hey, did you get your brakes fixed? You said they were squeaking last time. Whatever the case may be, people like to feel like they're important. If you remember silly little things like that, it may seem inconsequential to you at the time, but you never know what kind of day that person's having when you say something like that to them. So, it's community equity, I think, is what we'll be spending up front to get this built and running.
Absolutely, and that's the misconception. What we're doing here, the two of us, the two companies here, we're doing what every small business should be doing. Because how do you compete against the big boys? You have to team up as the small guys. There's been a movement to say support small businesses. I almost want to start a movement. Small businesses support each other. Like, find a way to support each other, because guess what? How can we compete against the big boys if we're trying to compete against ourselves? The big boys are working together. So if the big boys are working together, then the small guys got to work together too. So you know what? Let's start small business movement, support small businesses. That's what we should do. Because bottom line is, there's abundance for everyone. We all got to collaborate, because that's the only way we'll ever have a chance, is if we're all working together, and that's the spirit of crowdfunding. Collaboration at its best, baby.
Yep.
So.
Well put.
Here's another question from Roxanne Davenport. Will you help fund blogs or hangouts by placing ads? Camden, would you like to answer that one? Or Frank, you can.
Go.
Well, it kind of counts under, we are selling ad space in the magazine. So, we're open to whatever, submit your ad request. Just contact sales@crowdfundme.com. We're open to looking at any advertisement as long as it's not illegal, in any way, shape, or form, and moral, then I don't foresee having a problem with it for the most part. I'd like it to be somewhat specific to the industry. I'm not interested in ads for Fred's House of Massage Therapy or something like that. It's not really pertinent to what we're trying to market. Beyond that, we'll also, we'll share, tweet us, follow us on Twitter @crowdfundme, and if you've got something worthwhile that you want to share, share it and, tag us in it. And a lot of times we reshare a lot of things as long as it's, pertinent in some way or fun or, useful or, let's just have a great day.
Frank, I'd like to place an ad of me in my RealityCrowdTV swimsuit on your page. Is that okay?
Not approved.
Your own co-founder said no.
I'm just denied.
Okay, Manolis, you're fired. Jessica, you're hired.
Oh man. Oh wow, this is another comment by Marlon Adams. This is a small world. Marlon says, hey Manolis, I met James Fierce and he mentioned you. Marlon, it is a small world. James Fierce hosts a show called Get Busy on Google Hangouts, and he's actually an innovation coach as well. And I'm working closely with him because he's a brilliant guy, sees the opportunity in crowdfunding, and we're just trying to collaborate with James Fierce as well. So Marlon, work with James. He's a great guy, and maybe we could all collaborate together because I can't say enough about the guy. All right, so I'm going to give everyone the last word. We're at 9 o'clock, so we're basically out of time, but I'll just give everyone a last word. So we'll go with Frank. We'll start with you. Your last word for the audience?
I was going to say ladies first, but I just wanted to thank everybody for their time and for the questions. And make sure you go to crowdfundme.com and subscribe to the magazine. It's free. Subscribe early, subscribe often, tell all your friends, and thank you.
Excellent. And Kamini, last word?
Yeah, thank you for having us, guys. Really appreciate it. I mean, we've been working with you guys for a while now, and excited to do the new show with you, and for the audience for their awesome questions, and my husband as well. And of course, you know, anything you guys want to submit, or if you have an article you wrote about crowdfunding, or if you even have questions, just, you know, go through our website and info@crowdfundme.com. Shoot us a question. We also are crowdsourcing our frequently asked questions, so if you have a question, leave it there, and we'll get you an answer, or somebody else will. But really, we're just here to help. So, you know, help us by helping yourself. Come to us for a resource, and we'll help you.
Excellent. And Jessica?
Thank you, Frank and Kamini, definitely for joining us. It's been a pleasure. Definitely a fun show. And to the audience, I hope you guys are excited about the crowdfund pitch show. So definitely 100% contact us. Let us know about your project, and we would definitely want you on the next crowdfund pitch show.
August 7th, I think. I forgot to mention that.
Yes, good call, Frank. Yes, the crowdfunding pitch show is going to be August 7th, likely at 8 p.m. Eastern time, just like all the other shows. And we'll be working out the logistics shortly, but we'll be able to send you all the invitations just like many of you received today. So, you know, thank you all again for watching. Audience viewers, by the way, we have not been less than 7 viewers, and at most we were 12 live. And all 7 has stayed on for the full hour. So that means thank you for telling us that we're doing a good job and we're not boring. So thank you so much. And I just want to say, you know, I'll end it like I end every show. Thank you for joining us. Until next time, dream it, believe it, achieve it. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you.